Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to JSoS, aka Just Sharing Our Stories. I am your host, Georgiana Collington, and I'm so excited to have you here on this platform another day, another time where we're able to share our stories that impact lives, that influence others, and where we're able to learn, grow, and teach. JSoS is basically a platform that the Lord gave me where we're able to do just that, share our stories, because stories matter, they impact lives. And I personally believe that our stories has the ability to change the trajectory of someone else's life. We see stories occurring all across the board. Doesn't matter what stage you are in life, your story, your lived experiences matter. And as we believe that, when we also triumph when we share our stories. And so it is so important, as this platform has been created, to do just that, because not everyone has the opportunity to write a book or have a platform of this format, or maybe have the microphone given to them as a speaker or a teacher or a pastor. But this is another way that we can utilize what we have experienced to help encourage someone and empower someone. And so, one of the things I've shared in the previous podcast is that, you never know the impact of your story on someone else's life. Your story can can be the key that someone needs to unlock their destiny. And so it's so important, so crucial that we utilize every opportunity that we have, to share our experiences. One of the things today we laid our uncle to rest, and one of the things that he was very adamant about was teaching and sharing what he learned to help enhance the lives of others. And so, he can rest in peace now, knowing that, he can now rest in peace that he has played his part by sharing his knowledge, his wisdom with the generation that he grew up with and those that are coming. And so, it is so crucial, so important for us to do that as individuals, because you never know what your story can do to impact someone else's life. And as I mentioned, your story matter. It doesn't matter what stage or phase you are in life. You're never too old. You're never too young. Your story matters. And so that's what JSoS is about. Like, it's the opportunity to share your story and to share your lived experience, and let us know, what did you learn? How did you grow from it? Are you able to teach? And so that's what this platform is about. And, as the long as the Lord gives me breath and there are more opportunities, we'll be doing that. So without further ado, I want to share a little bit about my guest, Andrew Kroutz. So Andrew is a dear friend of mine. I met him in South Africa in 2007, where I served with this organization called African Enterprise, under the youth section, Foxfire. And so I was able to live in South Africa for that year, and I got to meet so many amazing individuals, so many influential individuals, and Andrew is one of those for me. We have kept in contact over the years. Andrew was able to visit Canada in 2009 as a part of the ministry, coming and sharing the gospel, because I also believe not only we are supposed to be sent, but we're also to allow people to come in. So it was one opportunity for us to allow individuals to come in from different countries to pour into us. So it's not always us going, but we need to also have them come in and share their experiences. And so Andrew has been a great friend, a great mentor. He is a business owner. He is a coach. He's a trainer. He is a speaker in his own right. And so there's so much wealth of knowledge, when it comes to him. And, you will hear more of his story and how God has really impacted his life, over the years, and continue to do so. And him doing his part in helping and influencing those around him. So I'm so excited. He's also the owner of Wise Creative Solutions. So that is coaching business and leadership training business that he's being that he has launched in South Africa. And God has been using him mightily to with so many organizations to help train their employees. And so I'm excited excited to see what God does in his life. And, he's, again, great prayer warrior. I love the people that are God's, surrounds me with are praying individuals, people who will speak into your life. And it's so important being mindful of the people that you have around you that speak into your life. And so he's one of those individuals that, has really been blessed. God has blessed me with, over the years to speak into my life and pray with me and partner with me and listen to some of my crazy ideas and willing to jump in with me. So Andrew, welcome. Thank you for logging on. I know there was some load shedding happening in South Africa at the time. So I'm so excited that, you were able to join in. So welcome. So the platform is yours, as mentioned.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome to everyone that's joining in as well from different areas. So thank you so much. I know that it is, and I take it as an honor for you to join in from wherever you are to spend time with us. Feel free to share, with others as well and let them jump on. Get your pen, your paper ready, your coffee, whatever you need. There are some wealth of knowledge that you will receive. I know I've been blessed in so many ways over the past few podcasts. So I know that this will be no different. All right. So Andrew, so tell me a little bit about yourself outside of what I just shared with you about you.
Good morning, everyone. It's actually night in South Africa. It's 6:30 p.m. in South Africa.
Yes.
So we are about to go to sleep as you start your day. Thank you so much, Jeannie. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I feel that we can close the session now. And
yes.
I feel that we can close the session. But thank you so much for having me, Jeannie. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My name is Andrew Kroutz, and I am born in South Africa. I grew up.
Okay, I think we're just breaking up a little bit here. I think, Andrew, yes, you're saying that you grew up in South Africa.
3 siblings, we grew up together. And so basically school was just across the road.
Okay, we're just having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. If I can ask everyone just to, make sure that they're, most of everyone is muted. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything that we can do with the connection. Nevertheless, Andrew, are you able to hear me? Okay, I'm not quite sure. I think you're just, there's some static there right now. If maybe you want to log in and exit and then re-enter or just to speak so I can hear you. Are you, okay, so let me just check again. Are you, I want you just to speak again, just because I think we just lost you for a bit.
Hi, Jeannie, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, good. We're back. So you can continue.
You're back. Okay, so sorry about that. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So as I was saying, that I grew up in a very, very small town, a couple of very, very small towns. That basically has 2 streets. So it takes about 5 minutes to enter town and exit town. So I grew up there and with my mom, 3 siblings. And I did all my schooling in that small town called Kroutz. So my primary school was just next to my house. So it was about 10 minutes to get to school. So that was quite fun. So growing up there, and that's where I lived most of my time. It was a very, very small town, very community orientated. So I lived most of my time there. So that's where I spent most of my time.
Okay, so grew up in Coxted, this is in KZN, in KwaZulu-Natal.
Yeah.
Right. So so in KwaZulu-Natal, so he speaks multiple language. So I believe Zulu, I won't even pronounce the, so
Right. Yeah, yeah,
again,
yeah.
lots of languages here. And so,
Yeah.
but Andrew, so I know you shared a little bit about yourself in terms of where you grew up, and
Mm.
you were from a single parent home, um,
Yeah, correct.
as well. And, how did that really impact, your life as it relates to where you are now? I know oftentimes individuals may say that, it's better to be in, a two-parent home, but what are some of the things that you learned,
Mm.
that you benefited from
Yeah.
being in a single-parent home?
Look, growing up in a single parent home is very, very tough. I think every boy looks for their father. Looks for their father. They want to connect and they want to relate to something that has a father in it. And so growing up with my dad was very, very tough. I remember going to school and people used to speak about how they should go on holiday with their families and how they play soccer with their dad. So that was very tough. That was very tough and it was hard. It took me a long time to actually heal from that, because we had our mom, even though our mom got remarried, she got married again. It was never the same with my stepdad. And out of that marriage came my other two siblings, but we were never treated the same. So it was very, very tough. And I think every people want to people want to identify with some kind of a culture. So you speaking that I come from KZN, so
Okay, I think we're just losing you a little bit there as well. I know, and I think the last thing you were saying, Andrew, that people needs to trying to find ways to identify, where they're coming from, what they're doing. But I think you're back now. Yeah. Okay, so we're still having some difficulty there, which is understandable. One of the things that, we sometimes take for granted is our ability to connect easily without any issues, without any challenges. But, as we can see in so many different parts of the world where that is an issue. We experience it here as well. But, we don't take it lightly. We don't take it for granted. And Andrew just stepped off a bit so that he will be rejoining us as well. But one of the things that he was saying was, being able to identify, within have that your identity being placed within your home environment. And so many of us connect our identity based on our home, and we tend to somewhat isolate or ignore others who are not in the same positions that we're in, or look down upon them in a different way. And having known some of Andrew's stories, so that's why I'm able to carry on a bit, because as individuals, as I said before, we take a lot of things for granted. What we have in our possession, we don't appreciate until we no longer have it. And so for some of us who grew up in a in that type of family where you have two parents, or a single parent, home, we tend not to appreciate the value and the impact that they will have on us. But at the same time, recognizing that no two situations are the same, but each has its own benefits. As much as being in a single parent home may be difficult, or you may desire to be in, you're looking at someone else's life thinking that their life is way better than yours because of what, they have. You at the same time, we don't know what is happening on the other side. And so it's being grateful for what you do have and appreciating what you have. One of the things I was sharing earlier on, that if you see me squinting, it's because the lights in my eyes, and I had for the past week been suffering with conjunctivitis, which is commonly known as pink eye. And there were mornings when I woke up not being able to see clearly, and it's so it made you realize how we take a lot of things for granted. It makes us realize how we take, some of the common things that we have every day for granted. And for me, it made me realize, okay, you can complain about your eyes, you can complain that it's too big, too small, it's too slant, it's not perfect symmetry to your face and all of those things. But the minute you don't have it, you recognize the value of it. And so it is even in, as Andrew was alluding to, being in a single parent home. Even though his mom remarried, there were things that, yes, he missed, but there are things that as well that, maybe perhaps didn't appreciate as much as he ought to. Because one of which being his mom was present, and sometimes you can have parents or individual being present in your home, but they're present, but their presence isn't there. So they're physically there, but they're not there to support or to someone that you can speak to or call upon or can influence you or can help you or can impact your life. And I don't know if there's anybody on here that can relate to that aspect, as it relates to having people being present in your life, but their presence, they're not present. Their presence is there, but they're not present. So they're absent, in other words. And so, in that aspect, we tend not to appreciate some of the things that we do have because we're busy looking on someone else's life, thinking that their life is better. And this is what Andrew was saying earlier, saying that, I was looking at everyone else's life, those who are able to share about going on vacations and being able to spend time with their dad. In his case, his dad wasn't present. And, he was sharing all of those things and felt that he was missing those things. But a lot of that is basically looking at the other side, thinking it is better, and not recognizing the fact that you have someone present who is there, willing to connect, willing to share, willing to pour into you, willing to stand for you, willing to pray into your life, willing to support you. Whereas the other families that he was looking at, they may not have that. It may look that way from the outside, but from the inside, there was turmoil. There could be turmoil happening. So so the moral here basically is appreciating what you have, valuing what you have, because the minute you don't have it, that's when you miss it, and you realize the value in terms of who is present in your life. So that is very important in that aspect as well. I'm not quite sure if there's anyone else that has anything to comment regarding that. But if how when you a lot of it also goes back to comparing. A lot of it looks to comparing your life with someone else's. And I'm a firm believer of not comparing, because one, God does not make mistakes. The Bible tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So there's no need for us to compare ourselves to anyone. And the reason being, when you start comparing yourself, that means you're telling God that what he's done is not good, or it's not enough. There are things missing. And we all know that he does not make mistakes. God does nothing wrong. Like he is, everything he does it well. And so, as we're speaking, as we continue, I'm still waiting for Andrew to rejoin, but, comparison really basically says that you are not appreciative of what God is doing for you. And so I don't know if there's anyone that want to comment towards that or speak towards that as well. This is the opportunity. Or if you want to share, what are some of the things that you've learned being in a single parent home, or you can speak to the fact of, having individuals being present, but their presence is there, but they're not present. So in other words, they are physically there, but they're not there for you, not being able to speak to you or speak through you or influence you or impact your life. Is there anyone that want to share anything pertaining to that? And again, welcome for those who are just joining in. please feel free. This is a judgment-free zone as well. And, you have the opportunity to ask questions, to share your story. This is what we're here to do today. iPhone, I see iPhone is unmuted. Do you have something to share?
Good morning, Georgiana.
Good morning.
You were speaking, I just remembered, growing up in a home that is through pastors or past missionaries. Sometimes being present, it is true. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are present in everything. And so for me, instance, I learned what present meant when I met my husband, that time boyfriend, to understand the love of a mother and a father in a different way, even though I had both parents present, but didn't feel them, didn't feel the love, didn't feel the connection, was more connected to people from the outside and asking God, is this true love? Like, how does this happen? Because you see the love that they give to others. And then you compare a little bit to say, okay, if that's the love on the outside that people are receiving, and that's how a family should look, and that's how people should be treated, what is different from my own house, even in a Christian home? And so it's only at that point in time that I realized truly, okay, I have to go back and really go and look for what I really want in my own home. But it would take the time for me to invest. It wasn't necessarily something from my parents, because that's just the way that they grew up. That's just the way that they love. But it was now God opening my eyes and saying that this is how true love is from the outside. If you really get deeper, it doesn't necessarily mean just because they are there that they are truly present in the moment, because all they know is ministry. All they know is giving in. Their love of giving is feeding you. Their love of giving is making sure you are clothed. Their love of giving is making sure you know Jesus. And that's it. There's nothing more and nothing less. So when you were sharing, it just triggered again that memory back of how it sometimes you are there, but you're not there. And even as a child, you are there, but you are just like, okay, this is just how our household is, but is it truly what God intended it to be? And so having that example of another family, seeing the intimacy, seeing of, even if you're single, as a single parent, that you are present in all ways, that is unbelievable. Steve and his mom have a weird relationship. I used to say they would sleep next to each other, and I'm like, what's going on here? But that's the way that they love one another. That's the way that she had poured out her love, which wasn't common to me, that had both parents. And so having to see that was like, okay, there is true love, but what does that mean? Does it mean that I have to change a little bit, and showcase to my parents that this is actually true love, and not just true love, but showcasing that you can have affection to your children in a different way. It doesn't just have to be the staunch Christian way of like, what I say, it's go, but it's still being respectful and being loved. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. That is so poignant, because, thank you so much for sharing. That's Reverend Tamlin. So Tamlin is my pastor here in Calgary, Alberta, for Shekinah Living Word Center, where she pastors with her husband, Pastor Reverend Steve Stearman as well. And they also hail from South Africa, but living here in Calgary, Alberta. So again, as for those who are just joining, as I mentioned, that, the Lord has really blessed me with so many individuals that that can pour in and pray in, and that covers my life. And God is so very strategic and intentional, and so it's as she was sharing that, yes, a lot of times, as we said before, we have people present in our lives, but their presence is there, but they're not present. And it's so important that even for us, reflecting on that, because I'm also, reminded that I present in a lot of individuals' lives. And so it also makes you become more intentional, because, intentional in terms of, making sure that you are present being present, not being physically here, but absent-minded. You're doing everything else, thinking about all those other things. And it's so important that we're reminded of that. We talk about it, for a lot of teachers who are on here as well, that, you can have your students in the class, their bodies are here, but their mind's somewhere else. They're either doodling, or, they're on their phone, or they're doing other things, and they're present, but their bodies are there, but their presence, they're elsewhere. And so it's the same thing in any relationship, on your job, are you really present? And so, one of the things that the Lord has been reminding me a few years ago is to be very intentional. Be intentional in the relationships that you have, be intentional in the things that you're doing, be intentional in building that relationship with Him, being intentional in your body of influence, people that surround you, people that are pouring into you, and who you pour into, being intentional about sharing your story. And the reason being because we've been, as a society, been taught to somewhat keep everything to ourselves. We've been taught to, let's not share what is happening in our lives. Yes, there's some degree of what you will be able to share, right? There's some degree to what you will be able to divulge. And a lot of it also comes with timing and wisdom and discerning. But at the same time, it is important for us to, let others know, share about how we're feeling, share about, what has impacted our lives. Pastor Tamlin mentioned earlier that, coming from a household where there were pastors, they were busy pouring out to individuals. But even as a family member, she felt somewhat I wasn't being poured into. And so, as we think about those things, how many of us, are experiencing that in our lives? How many of us, have gone through that process where, you're looking on the outside, seeing what is happening on the outside, but you're missing out from it on the inside. And so, but that's where, as individuals too, the onus is on us. If you're listening to what she was saying, so there are things that we can decide what we want. We can decide what we desire, and we can change that type of trajectory. And so one of the things, the Lord reminded me recently, that we can be busy trying to change everyone else and not realizing that the person that really needs to change is us. And reason being, we don't have the ability to change individuals. We can influence, we can share, we can speak to individuals, but at the end of the day, the onus is on that person. And Pastor Tamlin mentioned that she went seeking that which she desired. She wanted to have that love. She wanted to see, have that type of love, being surrounded by that type of love. And she not only sought that love, but she also created that environment for that. And it's the same thing as, that the Lord reminded us that we are so caught up in trying to change others, into what we feel that they should be, or kind of getting them to see our ideal or be more like us. But God is saying, like, listen, that is my responsibility. But what we can work on is change you to love them the way that they are. Change you so that their actions or their behaviors does not change who you are. And so, so that you can rise above, whatever is happening around you, and still being able to love, still being able to pour in, still being able to look at them beyond, who they are and what they've done, even if at the point of where they've hurt you, but rising above that. And that's also, again, going back to being very intentional, intentional in terms of I refuse to conform to everyone else's ideals. I rather conform to that of Christ and what God is calling me to do. So that is, so that is something, that, again, just to encourage those who are on here, we've been talking about different things, as well, as it relates to, comparison, as it relates to being intentional, as it relates to being present. I don't know if there's anyone that wants to share, anything as it relates to either of those, topics mentioned, whether it's comparing your life to someone else's, or whether being intentional in your actions, in the things that you want to achieve or do, or being present, being present for those around you, being present and available, for those that need you, or being, okay with just sharing parts of your story to encourage someone, to impact someone as we're here. Again, this is a judgment-free zone. Please feel free. Don't be silent. Don't be afraid to speak up. This is the opportunity that we have. As I mentioned before at the top of the session, that we have a lot of wisdom in the room, and everyone has a story. And as this platform is called Just Sharing Our Stories, you have a story to share. Stories matter, they impact lives. And, this is an opportunity. Do not leave this room, do not leave this place without, if you have a question or a concern, or something that you need someone to help you with, to understand. I don't profess to know all the answers, but there is a lot of wisdom and knowledge on this platform. And I'm sure that we'll be able to assist or help someone. Any questions? No? Everyone's quiet today? Okay, that.
Georgiana, I just have a bit of a comment, because it's a bit of a cautionary for me as I'm hearing, you speak and your pastor speak. And it just comes back to me, be careful what you wish for, because the grass always looks greener on the other side. And no one knows what goes on behind closed doors. So as you look to someone else who you think might be doing better, might be being better, it just comes back to looking into yourself and what the Lord has for you, because things aren't always what they seem.
Right.
And so self-reflection is really, really important, and keeping an eye on what the Lord's given you to do, what the Lord has given you to share, and just not to be looking elsewhere for your happiness or for the things that you think look better, because that's not necessarily the case. Who's watching you, and so you need to be the example rather than looking for an example when you don't really understand what's going on elsewhere. I grew up when we were young, and we used to watch this show, and I'm really dating myself, and I grew up here, in New Brunswick, and there was the Red Skelton show, and it might not be a reference that anybody remembers, but one of his characters was a very happy-go-lucky hobo, which are homeless now, but back then it was a hobo, and it was sort of a comical character, and he was an alcoholic, and he was always happy, but he was always drunk and falling down and things like that. And when we grew up, before, the Lord delivered my dear departed mother, she went through a time of being an alcoholic. And outside of our house, everything looked like, we were living a nice life, and everything was wonderful because my mother was such a sweet, sweet person. But behind closed doors, nobody knew the hell that my brothers and sisters and I went through because my mother was an alcoholic, and it was horrific. And so I always have that caution, and I guess that taught me not to look and not to wish for things, because you never know what's going on behind those closed doors. So it's really important just to take a breath and look what the Lord has given you. And, and you were saying you don't miss your water till your well runs dry, because until your eyesight became compromised this week, until you go to lose something, you don't realize how important those things are in your life, So, I mean, as you and your pastor were talking, I had that come back to me from my childhood. Be careful what you wish for, because things aren't always what they seem.
That's right.
and
That's
just
right.
rely on God in your own life and look to him. Don't look to others. I guess that's the bottom line. Always look to him. Don't look to others because you don't know what you're asking for.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing, Sherry. I know it's so easy for us to somewhat compare ourselves to other individuals. And in 2019, the Lord, he gave me this quote. For those who know me, I love quotes. And, we talk about comparison. We've also talked about being intentional and also being present. And, the quote that he gave me said, comparison eradicates joy and devalues what God has done in your life. I'm going to repeat that. It says, comparison eradicates joy and it devalues what God has done in your life. And, it's so easy for us to look on the outside and wanting and desiring those things, not realizing that you could possibly have the same thing, you possess the same thing. And but as human nature, we're seeing other things happening, whether it's, other people progressing, or we're seeing, families getting together as my guest, Andrew, was saying earlier, that, looking at other families and seeing how they're living and looking at his home being in a single parent home and the struggles that he was experiencing and thinking that their life was better. But not realizing that although from the outside looking in, it may be picture perfect, it may look as if everything is going well, but who knows the challenges that they're facing on the inside, the thing, who knows what they're not sharing. And so, so sometimes it's so important that we remember that, that rather than comparing, giving thanks for what you do have. And if there are things that you can change, that's where you can seek God, ask him to show me how I can do a transformation, show me how I can change my life for the better, rather than trying to, comparing myself to others and not knowing their story, comparing their successes to yours, or comparing, how they're being elevated, or, comparing their whether that family has children, or, being married or single, and all of those different things. But God reminded me in 2019 that comparison eradicates joy. It takes away your joy, because then you're no longer happy about what you have, because you're always seeking and looking at everyone else and thinking that what they have is better than what you currently have. And then it also devalues what God is doing in your life. So I know, Andrew, you're back on. So for those who are just joining in, I thank you again for coming on today. Andrew is my guest. He was busy talking, but there's some connection issues, and as a result, he had to jump off. So at the same time, we started communicating about, talking about comparison, because that's where he left off, where he was talking about his journey being in a single parent home and looking at their life, thinking that their life was better. But it also, had us thinking about not only the fact of, even though you may be in a single parent home, you have someone present, that their presence, their presence may be there, like they may be physically present, but their presence is elsewhere. They're not there with you. They're just there to stand in, as a body, but not being there to support you or to encourage you or to give you that emotional connection that you need. And so, oftentimes we're busy looking at somebody else and thinking that their life is better. So Andrew, I know you're back on. I don't know if you want to continue that, as well as we, continue with the podcast. I don't know if you can hear me. Yes.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Awesome. It's good to be back.
Yes. So just to fill you in, so as I mentioned, we were talking about comparison, we were talking about being present, we also spoke about being intentional. So other individuals just hopped in and just spoke to those things, how that it relates to them in their life. And so as the floor is yours, if you want to continue to share about what you learned from being in a single parent home, and then we can jump into some other questions that we have.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's good to be back. I'm so sorry. We're just having some connectivity problems. So I'm praying and hoping that we're able to complete our podcast without any interruption.
Yes.
Yeah, as I was saying that, so it was really tough growing up, as a single parent. Um, my mom comes from the old school background, where she never really expressed love. So love wasn't something that was really expressed in our home. The only thing that was there was discipline. We was disciplined, because that's how she grew up, and she brought that into her house. And growing up without a dad was very difficult, was very tough. Like I said earlier on, going to school, people talk about their dads, talking about vacation, and all those things. And you want to fit in. Well, you really want to fit in, and you end up making up your own story and to try and fit in. But like I also said before, I was disconnected. I come from a very diverse family, where, like I said, my granny was white. I'm from Scarlet family. I've got some Zulu people, Xhosa people. So it was I'm probably the one that's dark. I'm probably the darkest in the family. So trying to belong was very, very difficult because I wasn't like enough, so I couldn't belong to white people. I wasn't. My accent wasn't black enough, so I couldn't be part of the Zulu and the Xhosa people. My accent is not black enough. So I had an identity crisis, because I'm trying to fit in, but I just can't fit in. I'm like, on my own, I've just got to own my own. So, I'm really trying to fit in. I just can't fit in. And so that was also a big struggle in my life,
Right.
And I think if my dad was present, maybe he could have guided me through that and helped me with a lot of insecurities which I faced later on, in life, because I was just trying to fit in. Who am I? Where do I come from? Where do I really belong? Those are some of the questions that I really was battling with. Really, really battling in school, in high school. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So that's like in a nutshell. So that's this is my background. This is how I really grew up.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Andrew. I know us and a lot of us can relate to that, as you said, that there are things that, you felt that you did not fit in. And so for, those, in South Africa, I mean, like across the world, right? But a lot of things were more prevalent there as it relates to, the different languages, the different cultures, the different backgrounds, or tribes. So it's, trying to find yourself in those places and trying to relate to others. So, that's also speaks to identity, right? You're trying to identify, who do I identify with? I'm not from the coloreds, as you would say, nor they're not accepting me in the Zulu community. They're not accepting me in the Xhosa community. Forgive me for massacring the word, but yes, so it's having that identity, and that's that's difficult for anyone, but it's also, I think, harder for young men. Women are able to somewhat assimilate or connect with other women, and we're okay to move forward. But sometimes it's a little bit more difficult for men to do that. And so, but I want to ask you, so how are you able, having gone through that process, having gone through that situation, how were you able to move past that? And now that you're in a position of not only being a coach and a teacher and a mentor, as well as an uncle to young boys, how are you able to use what you've learned to actually help them, in their growth spur and those around you that God has entrusted you to influence?
Yeah. It was a very difficult one. It was a very, very difficult one. I think I listened to a message by the late Eddie Long, and he put a very powerful message, and he said something very profound. He said, God entrusted your father to deliver the sperm, and he didn't trust you. He didn't trust him to bring you up. That message really changed me. because then I saw God as a father. God became real as a father. I I started viewing God with a different way as a father,
Mm-hmm.
and that really healed. That's where my healing really came, you know, because I accepted that I don't have a father, and I probably will never have. And let me take God as my father. But that even was very difficult for me because then um, couldn't. The struggle then was even though I've accepted God as a father, but I don't trust Him as a father because I've never seen Him in model. You know, so trusting God and
Mm-hmm.
submitting to older men was very difficult because that was never modeled. So coming into this new place, we in the church, right, where you have people who are older than you and all that stuff, and you got to submit to them. That was very difficult. Like I said, I've never seen that model. How do you submit to someone when you've never seen that? And one of the things that I did was I fought, when somebody tried to love me, I fought because that was never modeled. It was strange.
Yeah.
It was very, very weird. When somebody wants to hug me, why do you want to hug me?
Hmm.
So it was rather a very difficult transition. It took me a long time to actually heal and to accept God as my father. And I remember going to church. My conversion really, no one preached to me, no one made an altar call. I was working out of church, I was in high school, and the pastor stood at the door and he called me son. For the first time, that's when I broke down and cried and I gave my heart to Jesus. So like I'm saying, it was a journey, it was a process. It was a process for me actually to get to the place where I can actually look at God. But also with that, I was very angry at God. I was very, very angry at God. I was very, very angry at God. Because how do you call yourself father when you've never given your father? So it was a tough process, but and going to the question, how do I think one of the things that I've learned is just to love people. Really, that's what I do, just to love people, give people my time, listen to people, and make people feel valuable. And that has helped me a lot in most of my classrooms, people that I engage with, people that I coach. It was really it's just the love that flows out of me into them. Yeah. But the journey was difficult.
Wow. Thank you so much for your transparency, because, as it relates to very few people will talk about the fact that they were angry. They were angry with God and they were angry with, just some of the things that they experience. A lot of times we somewhat sweep it under the rug. But the one thing I've learned, is God can handle our emotions. He can handle whatever we're facing. He can handle all the questions. It's us. We are the ones that tend not be able to handle those things. But that's one of the things the Bible tells us to come to Him. Come as you are. Seek Him, call upon Him, and don't be afraid to tell Him your emotions. I was listening recently, to this another podcast, Terrace Whitfield, and he said that God can't heal what you won't reveal, meaning that if you are unwilling to come to God, as again, God knows, He's the all-knowing God. But He wants us to come and say, listen, this is what I'm facing. This is how I'm hurting. This is what I thought my life would look like. This is what, I thought, would have occurred at this season or this phase of my life. And it's not happening, or why are these things happening to me when everyone else's, their life seemed to be progressing. And, and most people tend not to want to do that or say that, but that's what God wants. He wants all of us, not the parts that feel pretty or nice or comfortable or easy to give. He wants the difficult part. If you're angry, God can deal with it. If you're upset, God can deal with it. If you feel like, Lord, as you said, Andrew, that there are times that you were asking God, well, you were angry with Him because where's my father? Where's my dad? How can I love someone and I've never had that experience? Having that challenge as well of, not being able to embrace affection or love from others, or even within the church. And so, I am thankful that you shared that part of your process and your healing process, because it is a process. And it starts with you going to God. It starts with you letting him know how you are feeling and not hiding anything. It's almost like going to the mirror and you can see yourself, but you're trying to hide parts of yourself, but you can see it. And so that's what it is when you go to God. He can see everything. He knows your heart. He knows what's happening to you, but he also wants to hear it. And so that message, that quote that, Latera shared was, God can't heal what you choose not to reveal. And so I'm thankful that, God has placed you on that healing journey where you're now able to pour into other young men and pour into your nephews and those that are, God has placed in your life to influence. I don't know if there's anyone else that has anything that they want to share towards that as well, but we're otherwise we'll keep progressing, keep moving on to the other questions. But this is the opportunity. You can unmute yourself, ask a question, and I'm sure that we're able to answer those for you as well. Any questions? No? Okay. Going once, going twice, no questions. This is the platform, anyone that want to contribute to what, Andrew shared earlier, about, not having a father in the home, or dealing with the identity crisis, or, being angry. If you want, if not, well, we can continue, we can move on. But this is the opportunity, to share and to ask as well. Nope. Okay. All right. So thank you so much again, Andrew, for sharing that. I know time is far spent as well, but we just have a few more questions that I want to just go over with you. And, you talked about, your healing journey, and that is a process. I want to speak to, your motivation. What is the one thing, or who do you have in your life that, constantly motivates you, going through what you've gone through, how do you remain motivated?
Thank you, G. Thank you so much. That's a very good question. It's like this week, I was actually asking myself that very simple. So who's the one person who's really most? Mm-hmm. Who's the one person that I really look up to? And I couldn't answer the question. Couldn't answer the question. And I guess it really came. It basically comes from my background. So I'll just backtrack a bit. I started working at the age of 13. At the age of 13, I basically had to look after myself. That means I had to pay my own school fees. I had to buy my own school clothes. Basically at the age of 13, I had to put myself to school. So I learned the art of being independent from a very, very young age. And trying to find a role model was rather difficult because, like I said, I didn't belong. Trying to belong was an issue. Who do I really relate to? Who do I really relate to? So that's a tough question. Look, I have people that speak into my life.
Right.
I have people that pray with me.
Yes.
To say I look up to them, yes, I do. Have they influenced my life? In certain ways, yes, they have. And there's a number of things. But the one person who really influenced my life, I'll go back to Jesus. I'll go back to him because he became a father at a very young age before even these other men of God could come into my life. So that's the one person that I always look up to. Amen. And I've learned over the years that's the one person I look up to. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Well, no,
Yeah.
you are answering because you said that if I heard you correctly, you said that yes, you are independent, and you had to be from a very young age. So in other words, you're self-motivated, but one of the things that who you look up to, who keeps you going, who motivates you, who inspires you every day is based on your relationship with God. And so oftentimes we have multiple, a myriad of individuals that we look to that motivates us, that encourages us, but the true motivation comes from Him. And so that's why, that's if and I correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I heard you're saying, that you are
Right.
self-motivated. You are
Right. Yeah.
motivated, because on the best of days, on the greatest of days, you are the
Mm,
one that has to push yourself towards achieving your goals and doing the things that you need to wake up, to get up, to challenge yourself to do the things that you need to. So
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And we I know we're in similar fields in terms of mentorship
Mm,
and coaching, and we know that's valuable to us. And for those who don't know, Andrew is also a Maxwell Leadership Program member. So for those who don't know, John Maxwell is one of the leading mentorship coach trainers, author, pastor as well. So we had the privilege of serving and learning under their tutelage as it relates to mentorship and coaching and leadership training. And how has that been for you? Like, what are some of the things that you have learned throughout your years of leading and training and mentoring others, and what have you learned, and how are you what are you how are you utilizing what you have learned to really help others around you and influence others around you?
um, Thank you so much. Um, look, from a very young age, I knew that leadership and business is something that I wanted to do. I knew that I had the skills. I wasn't the smartest in class. Right? I was below I was below average. And how I actually completed school only God. But I knew that I had something inside of me that I could offer.
Right.
And I guess I asked myself the right question: what can I do that will make
Mhm.
me happy? What's the one thing that I can do that even if somebody asks me to do, and I'm not going to get paid for it, but it will still give me joy, it will still give me satisfaction.
Hmm.
So those are the kind of questions that I ask. What am I good at? What
Right.
am I really good at? What's the one business that I can start that won't cost me a lot of money? Even if
Yes.
it takes me a long time to see revenue, I will still keep going because out of it I find joy.
Mhm.
So those are the kind of questions I ask myself. And so being in the background, like I mean, coming from with my background, where I saw a lot of, where I felt rejected, where I felt lonely and all that. So I knew
Mhm.
that I could change people's lives, I could influence someone, and through that, that's when I actually made some discoveries. Like, I think I'm good in this.
Mhm.
People told me, I think you're good in this. You're good in this. You're good. With all the information, I took that and I put it together. And like you said earlier on, we served on Foxpunch. So that was a great
Right.
platform for me to identify my skills. So
Right.
that was a really great platform. So when I got into leadership, in fact, I didn't even know what I was doing. I knew what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to do
Mhm.
it. And until my students came back to me, can you please coach me? Can
Mhm.
you coach me? Okay, let's do this. And after coaching, someone would come back to me and say, look, I found a job. Wow, I found my dream job, but a lot of things were happening, and I was trying to make sense of what was happening.
Right.
Like I said, I knew what I wanted to do, but I just don't know how to. I don't know what it looked like, you know.
Mhm.
And so so when God started opening up some doors for me in different institutions and being able to speak,
Mhm.
um, that really helped me a lot because then people, they would come back to me and like, I think you'd be a good speaker. I think he'll be a good motivator. I think he'll be this. So I listened to what they were saying. But here was the issue.
Mm-hmm.
I was dealing with, like I'm saying, like I was dealing with an identity crisis. I didn't believe in myself.
Right.
I didn't believe that I was capable of doing anything. I had a desire of making a change, but the self-belief was not there. You know, it was very tough to embrace the things that people were saying about me.
Right.
Because I also used some negativity. So somebody saying something positive to me was very, very tough. And through that, I was able to make a change to a lot of people. And
Yes.
and when I discovered that God has good plans for me, that God wants me to prosper, that God wants me to do well, that I have these skills. So I started utilizing those skills by making a change in people's lives. And the first
Yes.
thing I've always do is that make you feel I have a way of making people feel very important. And I don't know
Yes.
how. But people just come back to me and says, wow, when I was sitting across from you, I know we are 50 of us, but I felt like I was alone. And I knew there was a gift from God. So I really started capitalizing on all of those things. But
Yes.
also, I would then have sessions with people after that class and tell them exactly, I believe you. I believe that you can do this. I believe that you can become great. And through conversations and all those the classroom training, I just saw a lot of people flourish. So
Right.
one of the things that has really helped me with my leadership is really just believing in people, telling that you are great, you can do well, and not only saying that but believing it, working it.
Yes. Wow. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No.
No, so again, that self-motivation keeps coming up, as I'm listening to you speak, is being able to inspire others because of what you have gone through, and you've utilized that aspect of what you face to help others, to help impact other individuals' lives. And by you doing so unknowingly, that you're able to branch out into, what now, we speak to is like mentorship and coaching and training. And, it's so interesting, as you were saying, that you didn't know what you were doing. And oftentimes we don't, but God has a way of pulling out in us what is placed in us, so that we often don't see it, but others around us see it, and so he constantly thrusts us into positions where what he is seeing is being revealed to others so that it can actually be used to help them. And so oftentimes we don't see it. And I can relate to that, because a lot of times I've been placed in leadership positions, and sometimes I'm asking God why, but then God knows why he is calling us, because he knows what he has placed on our lives. And so oftentimes we feel like we're not equipped. We feel like we're not capable of doing certain things, but God knows what he's placed in us. And if you notice that you're being thrust into these roles and these positions of influence or impacting others, that's a time to start praying into it. Say, God, why are you bringing me into this area? Because that means there's something that God has in you that he wants to utilize to help others. And that's a part of mentorship and coaching. And there's no age limit. And I will repeat that. There's no age limit. There's no age restriction. If everyone has the opportunity to impact and influence individuals. We all have the opportunity to mentor, to coach someone, maybe directly or indirectly. It could just be whether you're just speaking into their lives or encouraging them or being present for them, but utilizing that opportunity, that you have, that God has allowed that person to cross your path to help them along their journey. And that's what JSoS again is about. Realistically, it's using what you have, using the stories that you have, the lived experiences to help someone along their path, and sharing with them what you've learned, how you grew from it, and now you're in a position to teach. So it's learn, grow, and then teach. And so that is why we're here. That is the purpose of us being here, is yes, the ultimate this is to serve God, to live for Him and build a relationship with Him. But we're all here to help each other learn, to grow and to teach and help impact lives. And so, so thank you so much for sharing that, Andrew. I don't know if there's anyone that has anything to share pertaining to that as well, in your own coaching or teaching or journey or mentorship journey, and I will implore, everyone on this platform that, again, it's never too late. You're not too young, you're not too old to share, because it is important, it is needed. And if you remain silent, you don't know, as I said at the top of this session, you don't know, you don't know what the impact of your story on someone else's life. And you could possibly hold the key to unlocking someone else's destiny. And, if you withhold that information, you don't know how that person's life could have been changed or transformed. So it is important, whenever you possible, whenever you can, share that story, share your journey, share, how your lived experiences. You don't have to wait for you to get a book deal. You don't have to wait until someone hands you the mic. You have the opportunity right now to share your story. So share it. Let someone know what you've experienced. Let someone know how you've progressed. Let someone know, yes, it was difficult, as Andrew said, as a young man growing up in a single parent home. There were issues of identity crisis. There was issues of comparing your life to someone else's. There's just also being able to become self-motivated, not waiting for someone to come and be your rescuer, but being able to say, listen, I can do this through the help of God. I'm able to survive. I'm able to be successful. I can be intentional in my relationship with Him. I can be intentional with my relationship with others. I can grow. I can go out. I can possess. I can do better. I can influence. I can impact. I can lead. So all of those things, you're able to do. And, before I move on to the next question, I remember one of the statements for my uncle that passed away says, he did not like to hear the word "I can't." So that was something that he did not want to hear from anyone, that I can't. That should never be a part of your vocabulary. And that was something he was very adamant about, that I don't want to hear anyone telling me that I can't. Once you're alive, once you have the ability, there is always a possibility. So as the scripture says, you can do all things through Christ, all things. And God can make the impossible, what is deemed impossible for you, possible. So in other words, you can. Any comments before we move on to the other question? I know time is also far spent, but yes. Hello.
Can I just make a comment? My name is Namala Armstrong. I'm in the city of Markham.
Okay. Hi, Namala. Thank you for joining in.
Hi. So when you first started about comparison, it's true, because I remember growing up here in Toronto in 1969, being one of the first visible minorities at that time. My parents would always be comparing what we have with others. As I grew up, I realized that. And so my story that I'd like to share with you, it's a positive one. And like your uncle said, there is no such word as can't. Not in my vocabulary.
Right.
So I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And what happened with me was the criminal justice system failed me. As a result, I decided I want to make a change. And in order to make a change, it's you either be a politician or a lawyer or both.
Right.
So my journey was to become a politician, but what I did was became a lawyer and then ran for politics, where I was a city official, and I'm still continuing on a provincial level, because that's where policy makes with respect to victim against individuals, violence against individuals. My story is a single mom on social welfare, having my kids, went back to university because the criminal justice failed me because he was acquitted and I couldn't believe it. I had a judge looking at me and saying, oh, looking at how I react. You know, when somebody lies, you cannot, but your facial expression is like, wow. So
Right.
anyway, I've learned from that. So I went to university, I went to law school, I then did a master's. I for the past 28 years, I've been practicing law. So I deal with a lot of domestic violence, women and men too. And when they tell me their story, I tell them my story. And they said, oh my God, Namela, I'd like to be like you. I hope I can get, because not only am I a survivor of domestic violence on social assistance, being a single mom, but I did get remarried, and they say a third time is a charm. But I did get remarried. I was locked into a beautiful, really nice guy. So my life has been a success in that part. The other thing is, I say to them, I have children and I raise children as a single mom, and I have 4 children. 3 of them are lawyers, like myself, and the other one is going to be a lawyer soon. So, one of the things that I have trouble with, and I'm hoping maybe you could sort of guide me on how to deal with it, is as a visible minority and a woman, when I say to other people, my children are lawyers, people become like, oh, how dare you have great kids like that? So, like, I'm not ashamed, but I'm afraid to tell people about my kids, because then they kind of use that as, oh, wow, you know what I mean, right? Putting that aside, I also help students. In grade 12, we have a co-op placement for high school students. So I take on students, have been doing it for 28 years. And I must say, I love it when students say to me, wow, you could be a mother, you could be a wife, you can have your sole practice, and you could be a community person, and you could juggle it all and do well. So they see me as a role model in that sense. So I want you to know, every day, every morning, I wake up to one day at a time, sweet Jesus. And this is my prayer by Charlie Dix. And I also go to bed with listening to information and the Bible. Every day I do that. So my concern is that, how do I really get over this thing about, I'm proud of my family, but I'm afraid to tell people about it.
Right. Wow. Thank you so much for, Ms. Nirmala, thank you for joining in and, sharing your story. And, it is interesting. As I said, we're all here to learn and to, grow and teach. And thank you for the work that you're doing in your profession, in your field, and what you've done and accomplished, throughout this time and those years, and influencing and impacting your children. I don't know if there's anyone that wants to jump in before I respond. Again, this is a platform. This is a room filled with lots of wisdom, and we want to utilize the wisdom within the room. And so, if there's anyone that wants to address what Ms. Nirmala shared, feel free to do so before I, respond. Anyone open? No? Don't be shy. This is a judgment-free platform. Doesn't matter what stage or phase you are in life. We all have questions. We all require answers. We don't all know the answers. And so that's why we utilize our experiences, our lived experiences, to help others around us, to impact them, to help them to grow. Yeah. Okay. Well, while you're conjuring or thinking of what to say, I will just say, I think, one of the things that, I would applaud you for, what you've done in, your situation with your family, and rising above, all those challenges. Because it's easier to, to succumb, to all that you've encountered, and it could have gone in another direction. But by the grace of God, and the strength that He's given you and impacted you with, you were able to rise above what you've experienced. You did not allow your situation to actually debilitate you. You did not allow it to actually deter you from moving forward and growing. And that is something to celebrate, because there are many, and I'm sure that you've encountered within your profession, many who have become are basically at a standstill, that they're not able to move forward because of the hurt, the pain that they've endured. And, you know, as it relates to you know, the successes. And that is a mindset that we need to change. It's something that I had to learn as well. I can tell you, anyone that really knows me, this would not be my platform. I'm more of a person that's behind the scenes, but as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, that, you know, this is something that God was calling me to do, to say, listen, I want you to share your story. You may think that your story is not impactful. You may think that it's not important, but there are many that are around you that needs to hear it. And so even in your situation, that you have allowed, you know, God has allowed you to rise above what you've experienced. You did not allow that temporary situation to become permanent in your life. And not only that, you also demonstrated that for your children, so that they themselves are able to rise above, look at you as an influencer, look at you as someone that motivated them, encouraged them to do better, that their situation or their circumstances does not define them. That is not the end for them. And so that is something that is worth celebrating. And so oftentimes as individuals, we don't want to, as we would say, toot our own horn. You know, we don't want anyone to know. We tend to shy away. And again, I am no different from a lot of individuals. But it's also looking at it from a perspective of, listen, I overcame, not by myself, but through God. I was able to overcome. My children were able to survive and thrive. Why not celebrate it? Why not share about it? Because if don't allow the narrative to be, yes, I've been hurt. Yes, my past was difficult. Yes, I'm a victim of abuse. Yes, I am a single parent from a single parent household. Yes, I was on welfare. Yes, I, had to, benefit from the government and all of those things. Let that not be the narrative, but change the narrative to say, listen, I've been there. I've gone through that, and I'm still standing. My children did not succumb to the system. They were able to thrive. They were able to build. They were able to grow up as individuals that will motivate others and encourage others. And as Andrew and I, we were part of this Foxfire ministry in South Africa. It says, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And so in this part or phase or stage of your life or your children's life, they've ended well, as it relates to their career and what they've done and what, God has impacted them and imparted in them and placed them in a position of influence so that they can help others. So then let's work on changing that narrative of not showcasing what you've overcome, but change the narrative to say, listen, I went through challenges. I endured many hardships, and I was able to survive. Let that be the narrative. Some may not like it. That's okay. But don't allow other people's, purview of you or what they think that be a deterrent, because the one negative person is in the negative voice in the audience. It will be silenced by the 100 that will celebrate what you have gone through and celebrate where you have come, and celebrate where you're going. So that's just my 2 cents. Change the narrative. celebrate the successes, celebrate what they've done, celebrate the fact that they've overcome, celebrate that they've not allowed what they've gone through to impact or debilitate them, but actually allow them to thrive. It was their motivator to thrive and be successful, and so that they can now turn around and impact those around them. I'm not sure if there's anyone else that want to contribute towards that, but that's my 2 cents. I do hope that was helpful for you, Councillor Nirmala, as well.
Thank you so much. It was very helpful. It's really sad. Like, I do counsel a lot of women and young women and people in general. And
Right.
It's so easy because I can counsel them because I know what's right and what's wrong. But when it comes to myself, it's a different story. And I think that's where I'm still working on self-grooming. And it takes time, one step at a time. But thank you so much. I appreciate your comment.
You're most welcome. And that's what it is. We are our worst critics at times, and so it's changing that dial, changing that narrative to say that, listen, you know what you've gone through, you know what you've accomplished. It was not easy by any means, but you're still standing, and that is worth celebrating. Some may not like it, but there's at least one person, within your sphere of influence that will benefit from it. When you look at a forest of trees, they're all different sizes. They have all different purposes. They look different. They have different roles that they play, but, they all are able to survive and thrive. So it's the same for us, not looking at everyone else's, but know your worth, know your purpose, and celebrate it, because that's how God sees us. He says that we are overcomers by sharing our testimonies, and God has put something in us to impact someone around us. And I will not stop saying this. You don't know the impact of your story on someone else's life. And so it's very important that we do share it, because you may hold the key to unlock someone else's destiny. Okay, so I know it's time as far spent. The seeing is like 11 o'clock, and I know we could keep going, but unfortunately time is far spent. Andrew, I know I hope we will have another opportunity where I could get to ask you some other additional questions as well. But before we close off, I'm just asking anyone, if you have a question, if you need insight, if you want to comment or, share a part of your story, please feel free to do so before I, ask my final question to Andrew, and then we can close off today's session. Okay. All right. I guess.
So I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yeah. So I'm Hope Brothers, and I had that experience growing up in a single family household. My parents separated when I was quite young. And my experience was absolutely positive. My mom was a teacher. She's on the line, Sylvina. And she taught me the values. She spent time. As a matter of fact, each summer vacations, I never really liked it, because everywhere she took me to, I had to write a composition, describing my experience, right? And another thing that I really appreciated my mother did, that even though my parents were separated, she always says, never speak anything negative about your father in my presence, because he's your father. And we must honor what the Bible says is honor your mother and your father. She says, what happened between us is between adults. You're a child and you must respect your father in my presence. And that is something that I've taken with me. I've told her about it. I've told others. I've shared it. When you're going to experience a divorce is difficult on the children. And it's important to come together and unite as one to help the child transition to this very difficult period. Mm-hmm. That's my experience. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. That is actually, quite poignant as well. It's so easy, natural tendency to blame, to cast down or look down on someone, or speak negatively about someone, and that is something that we as a society needs to recognize, that we can't change individuals, and and our words have power. And I didn't say that. That's in the Bible. That is biblical. There is power in what we say, and the words that we speak or profess over ourselves or others is impactful. So is it that, as I was saying, with stories, and so it's being mindful of what we say to others, and it's a work in progress. It's not something that we often achieve overnight. It's a work in progress. And so thank you so much for sharing that, Hope, because so often we tend to be negative or speak negatively about others, not realizing that those within our earshot, or those, especially children, are very influential. They tend to hear that information and run with it. And even as adults, so it's not just even in a child-parent relationship, but as adults as well, being mindful, what you are sharing, that you're not sharing it from a place of of hurt, because I also believe that hurting people hurt people. And, it's sharing it, and not using just one situation to define that person. And so being very mindful of, what we say. And again, would you want that same words to be said about you, and how would you feel? So so thank you so much for reminding us of that. I don't know if there's anyone else, but that wants to share. This is your opportunity. Speak up. We want this to be that type of platform. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to share. And it doesn't matter what stage you are in life, because we all have questions. We all have different things that we experience and go through, and we all need help. And that's why we're all here, so that we can help our brother and be our brother or sister's keeper, and help them in their journey and their process. And so Andrew, if you're still present, I know it's getting late there on your side of the world. Yes, just share with us a little bit, about Wise Solution, and then, what are your plans as it relates to, that coaching and leadership training company that that you've been entrusted with.
Thank you, Sachi. And firstly, I want to say to Namala,
Yes.
Kudos to you, hats off to you. Really, really hats off to you. It's been such a wonderful work which you do, and continue to do what you're doing. Continue to do what you're doing. When God has blessed you, no one can take that away from you.
Amen.
You just got to enjoy the blessing. And to Hope, thank you so much for sharing that. It's amazing what parents can really deposit into our lives. And those are things that we carry with us throughout our lives. And so having a good mom really is so important. So important. And I believe that people can be good mothers, they can be good aunties, sisters, and just speak positive things into people's lives. Yeah. Wise Career Solutions, we're here. So, I've always had a passion for changing people's lives. I've always had a passion for growth. I've always wanted to see people do well. That's just been something that's been on my mind. So when I started this company, that was the initial plan. Like, I was working for other companies and I was doing well. And why am I not doing well? And they would want to keep me. But I'm like, why don't I use the same platform, the same gift that God has given me, and let me serve people? And so my philosophy of business is basically, no matter what business that you eat, you're serving. And while you're serving, you get a reward. And you're rewarded. So when I went into that, was just really just serve people. And through that, I get rewarded. So it's just really serving people. So our dream really is to, South Africa, you've been here, and I'm sure that you've seen that we have a high rate of unemployment.
Yes.
We have a lot of unskilled, smart people that are unskilled. You know. So when we started this business, we really wanted to change the narrative. We wanted to upskill people. We wanted to actually tackle the unemployment. We wanted to tell people, look, you can start a business and you can employ people. You can make a difference. And our job is just to serve you by mentoring you, by coaching you, by giving you the necessary skills to do that. You know, but it was never about making a whole lot of money.
Right.
You know, that's going to be the end goal because we're rewarded for ourselves. You know, but it was really changing ordinary South Africans.
Yes.
And for them to become better. You know. And I think when I did a program with a lot of master students, and one of the things that I was very educated, but many of them just didn't have the self-belief. They didn't believe that they can do it. But just to bring it back to South Africa again, like we have a lot of people who do MBA, but them doing their masters in business, they basically what our schooling system teaches work for someone else and start your business. And we're like, no, you can't spend so much time in school, just work for someone else. Why don't you look at look at other means and start your own business and employ people? So that's when we started this business. We need to help people, push people, and upskill people. Where are we going to live? We want to be all over South Africa and all over Africa. That's the goal.
Wow. Okay. So thank you so much for sharing that. So Wise Creative Solutions, it's finding out or seeing that what areas you can make a difference in, and addressing a concern within your community, within your area, and asking, how can I make a difference? And that's something that we all need to, do in our own, areas of influence. How can I make a difference? What can I do to change, the status quo? How can I be of impact, a positive impact, within my community? And thanks for answering that call, because oftentimes people are thrust into different roles without a lot of experience in terms of leadership or development or training or coaching or mentorship, and it's we see it's lacking in a lot of areas. So you may have the education, you may have the knowledge, but the other aspect of leadership or coaching or training is somewhat missing. And I also say a lot of times we are in the position to communicate, because once you have a mouth, you have a voice, you can communicate. But influence and impacting lives goes beyond just communicating. You have to be able to connect. And that's a part of coaching and mentorship and training or leadership training, is allowing individuals to learn how to connect, learn how to communicate, and connect with others. And so thank you so much for sharing, about Wise Creative Solutions. I know that the Lord will allow you to expand and do well in that area. So we're excited for what God is going to do in your life. And, I know today has been a little bit different from what our normal session looks like, but we're thankful and grateful. God was in control. He did his own thing and wanted what needed to be shared. And so Andrew, I just want to thank you so much for joining in, and for every person that participated or joined in with us. I do appreciate you spending the time with us and sharing your story, or contributing and impacting in varying ways. And I look forward to the next stage and next time when we are able to connect. Please stay tuned to our social media platforms. So we are on Instagram. We're also on YouTube. So just look for JSoS.org. You'll see our previous podcasts on there. You can take a listen, share, like, subscribe. Also, we myself and one of the hosts on here as well, Sherry George. Sherry is the author of But God I Don't Want to Write a Book. And, you know, so it is on all the different platforms where you can, on Amazon, you can find it on different bookstores. So please look out for that information. So, But God, I Don't Want to Write a Book. Also, if you are interested, I do also have my own book of quotes. So for those who know me, I love quotes, as I mentioned at the top of the call about talking about comparison, that comparison eradicates joy and it also devalues what God has done. So you will find those quotes and a lot more, you know, in this book. It is on Amazon. If you'd like a personal copy or a signed copy, you know, or for either of the books, please feel free to email me at jsosorg@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to, you know, give you the information as well as send you out a copy if you need one. They're not expensive, so please feel free to do so. And then we also have, you know, JSoS information. We have our t-shirts. So if you want to be a advertisement for JSoS, letting people know the importance of sharing your stories, I can send you out a t-shirt as well at a nominal cost as well. And we're happy to do so because we want to change the narrative that sharing our stories are important. They impact lives, they matter. And so I am thankful for those who have stayed on today and, as you know, being able to share and contributed in whatever way that you could. I truly appreciate it. So may God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to email. And as we also say, do not fail to share your stories. Share your stories, because stories impact lives. Your story matters. And as you share and as you experience, you will learn from it. And when you learn from it, you'll grow. And once you grow, you will have an opportunity to teach. So God bless you. Take care. Have a wonderful day.